right. Well, welcome to the Equipment Zone Online DTG Academy. I'm Terry Combs, and I am joined right now with my good friend and associate, Jeff Morgenthaler. And Jeff, we've had many successful live DTG Academies here and there, New Jersey, Arizona, and we've had some road shows. But with our current situation, here we are online. So welcome everyone to our online event. Our other guests today over the next 2.5, 3 hours are going to be Ken White with Cotton Heritage, Matt Rome with Epson, Paul Zingon with Vastex, Roy Hussman, one of the technicians with Equipment Zone, JP Hunt with Inksoft once JP arrives here, Mel Lay with All Made Apparel, and Sanmar, and Brett Bowden with Printed Threads. So make sure that that you stay to the end. We're going to have a discussion among all of our panelists. Our event today is being moderated by Jay Bassell.
Yeah, so hey, Terry, this is interesting because we've done these DTG Academies in person over 2 days. So we're going to cram a lot of information in 2.5 hours. So we're going to be talking fast.
No small talk, no snacks.
Yeah. If you have questions, make sure you put them in the Q&A. Those are, that's a place where we can read them and try to answer them at the end, or maybe get with you after the event. And don't forget that this is recorded, so you'll be able to go back and watch this if we went a little fast on some topics and you wanted to catch that again. So we wanted to start off the event today talking about the 6 keys to successful DTG printing. And we live by these religiously. This is what makes you successful, is these 6 topics. And we're gonna talk about those. So let me start off with the #1 thing that we talk about in the 6 keys of success, and that's graphics. You know, if you don't have a good graphic to print, guess what you're gonna get? Garbage in, garbage out, right? So where do you get a lot of those graphics? You get them from your clients, which that could be either good or bad if your clients know what is a good graphic. A lot of times what I hear is that the graphics I get from a client are small JPEGs that they got off the internet. You know, and the internet, that's another place that you might get your graphics from. You might go on Google search and download a graphic. You might even put in the parameters for a high resolution. I've done that, and what I've found is that even if I download a high resolution file, it might only be 1 inch by 1 inch. And guess what happens when you expand that? It's pixelated and you don't get a good print. Also, there's a lot of information in a properly prepared file that gets lost over the internet that is required for a good print. So where can you get the good files? Well, one is that you would create your own using Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, CorelDRAW. Our clients fall into one of those categories typically. And there are resources to help you if you're not good in those areas. One of those great resources is GreatDaneGraphics.com. Now, Dane is a good friend of ours. We've done webinars with him. We have some recorded webinars you can go back and look at where he's talking about using Photoshop and how to prepare graphics. But on GreatDaneGraphics.com, he has thousands of prepared graphics specifically for direct-to-garment printing in a PNG format. Another great place you can get good graphics is Digital Art Solutions. Jay and I are very familiar with them, as we used to work with Digital Art Solutions many years ago. They work specifically with vector graphics. So if that's your forte and you like vector graphics because you can manipulate them, you can change colors, Digital Art Solutions is a great source. So I highly recommend checking them out. They have a lot of tools to work with in CorelDRAW, plus they have a lot of graphics that you can purchase from them. So, and there are other sites on the internet that you can go to. GreatDaneGraphics.com, Digital Art Solutions, those are industry sites. Those guys we see at the trade shows all the time. They're in this industry and they're very well known.
You know, Jeff, Dane also, if you're concerned about how the graphics are going to look on your Epson direct-to-garment printer, Dane has an F2000 that he does all his testing with. So, so those items have been tested on that printer. And, you know, Jeff, another thing I wanted to add is, you know, a lot of times it's just educating your customer on what kind of file, what resolution you need.
Yeah, true. And, you know, one way we educate you on that is during our training after you purchase a printer from us.
Exactly right. Well, you know, the second thing we want to talk about is the garment. And, you know, unlike screen printing or cut vinyl or a lot of, you know, embroidery, a lot of decoration methods where, you know, the garment isn't as critical, the garment is critical with direct-to-garment printing, just as important as the art, just as important as pre-treating and some of the other steps in the process. The reason for that is we're printing a water-based ink and we're printing very, very fine details. So what we need is a very smooth surface, a really tight weave. So what's my absolute best product to print on? It's going to be 100% ring spun cotton. And the reason for ring spun cotton, and a lot of people don't realize this, is it's not because it's ring spun, but ring spun cotton is made with a thinner, a finer thread. So when it's woven together, you get a smoother surface. So 100% cotton is your best friend with any direct-to-garment printer, and ring spun cotton is better there still. You know, we do have a list of products that we recommend, at least t-shirts that we recommend. If anybody's interested, you can email sales@equipmentzone.com. We'd be happy to send you that list. You know, Jeff, also, a lot of folks will say, well, what about blends? What about 50/50s? You can print on these products. Bear in mind, again, it's water-based ink. So water-based ink works best with cotton. So a high cotton content garment, say for instance, an 80/20 sweatshirt is going to print beautifully because of the high cotton content. But you know what? Sometimes we have a customer that wants that 50/50 t-shirt. One of the ways you can do that is you can pre-treat it, dry it, pre-treat it a second time, and then still get a saleable, acceptable print on a blended fabric. The other thing that we get asked a lot about, just yesterday, Jeff, I had somebody ask me on our live chat, well, what about polyester? Can you print it? Yes. You know, and you have one reseller that says, yes, with my machine, you can print polyester. And on the other side, somebody else says, no, you cannot print polyester. Here's a truth about direct-to-garment printing. What you can do with one machine, you can do with all machines. And so, can you print polyester? You can, but it's an extended process. Again, you're going to do it just like I said before. We're going to pre-treat, dry it, pre-treat, dry it. Then you're going to print it like a regular shirt. But the place we run into trouble with polyester is with dye migration, the dye on that polyester releasing into the ink. So we're going to heat set that at 275 degrees for 45 seconds on our heat press. We have to do that 3 times to get an acceptable print. So can you do it? Yes. Is it something that's probably going to be profitable for you? Probably not. So just more than anything, bear in mind that 100% ring spun cotton and also tri-blends, by the way, print beautifully as well. We can certainly give you recommendations on garments and the best garments to print, and maybe some tips on how to make a not so perfect garment work for you. So Jeff, how about point number 3?
Well, I just wanted to say, I'm glad you brought up those points on the garments, because I think I get asked those questions about 50/50 and polyester in every conversation.
Right.
And when I talk to them about the 50/50s, I'll tell you, the people I know that have tried those just do not like it. And I steer people to the tri-blends. I like tri-blends. I prefer those. I wear them a lot, and they look good, and the prints last great. So anyway, yeah, so the number 3 point that we're going to talk about is pre-treating. And I cannot stress this enough. Proper pre-treating is absolutely critical to your success. If you don't pre-treat properly, your print's not going to look good, and it probably isn't going to last on the shirt. We're going to dive into that deeper because it's so critical. That's actually going to be the next thing that we talk about after these 6 points, Terry.
Okay, very good. Well, the number 4 point is the actual printer. Now, there are 2 types of printers on the market today, and a lot of people still don't realize this. There are converted over paper printers, and there are purpose-built printers. A converted over paper printer, for instance, if someone says to you, our printer has an Epson print head, and it's just like the Epson direct-to-garment printer, it's not. Epson doesn't sell print heads to anybody else that makes direct-to-garment printers, which means those are off-the-shelf desktop paper printers. When you introduce a different ink system into a print head, than the ink system that's meant to go in there, then you're going to have issues with clogging, because what happens with a print head is the adhesives inside that print head are resistant to the ink system you're using. If you change the ink system, you're going to have issues. So if you hear things like, you must run this printer 24 hours a day, wet capping station, that's just hocus pocus for, we have to find some way to keep this print head from clogging. So anytime you hear things like that, chances are that is a converted over paper printer. The other issue with printers like that is a lot of these printers are no longer being manufactured. And the law in the US says that for like an inkjet printer, you have to make parts for 7 years. Well, the clock's ticking on a lot of those Frankenstein type printers, in the fact that Epson and other companies are not going to be making printheads for those forever, and they're not going to make them available for you. So the other thing that you need to look at with printers is what kind of a warranty comes with that printer. One of the things that the selling point for an Epson printer, and I don't want to make a sales pitch here, I just want to give you the breakdown on the benefits. 1 year warranty on that printer, renewable twice, so up to 3 years. Everything on the printer is covered and under that warranty, including 24 to 48 hour guarantee of service at your location, no matter where you are. You can shut this printer off at night, turn it back on the next day, and start printing shirts again. Print speed, you can print a white shirt in 45 seconds, a color shirt in 2 minutes. A lot of folks talk about, well, ours is faster. When you see them side by side, the Epson can stand up with any printer on the market. And Jeff, something you and I were talking about before we went on the air, the Epson printer has a 2-year shelf life on the inks. There are some printers on the market that have a 3-month shelf life. So a 2-year shelf life is really important, because you can have inventory of ink on your shelf for when you need it. Because everybody knows that you don't run out of ink on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. You run out of ink on Saturday night at 8 p.m. So
That's what we gotten at 4:59 on Friday afternoon.
I'm desperate. Can I come to your shop?
Another point on that, I think we're the only ones that really talk about that 2-year shelf life on ink and how critical it is. On those other printers where they have a 6-month or 3-month shelf life, if that ink is in your printer and it expires, you void the warranty.
Right.
So, that's a big deal. I think it doesn't get covered enough. All right. So moving on, the number 5, proper curing. So when you're curing your print, it is critical that you have the proper time, temperature, and pressure. And we go over all this with you again in training when you purchase from us. But on time, when you are printing on a white shirt, that's about 45 seconds. And if you're printing on a dark garment with white ink, that's 1.5 minutes. Temperature, you're going to want to be about 335, 340. And pressure. So in pressure, we say firm pressure when you are heat pressing a my mind went blank for a second. So when you pre-treat, you use firm pressure to dry that for 45 seconds, and then when you are heat pressing on your print, that's a light pressure. Now, when you go through training, if you are not in a heavy-duty production process, Roy might give you some options and maybe tell you, some different ways that you can do that. But those are pretty much the standards. And we'll talk more later. I'm sure people have questions, Terry, about using a conveyor dryer.
Absolutely, and we'll be talking with Paul about that. Paul from Vastex about conveyor dryers here in just a few minutes. But Jeff, the last point, number 6, is training and support. This technology is only 16 years old. It's difficult for you to run an ad and say, experienced DTG operator, please, because there aren't any. There are just a handful of people that know this industry. You need training on this equipment. So your options are basically have somebody read the manual to you, have somebody actually go over the machine point by point. Now, in the past, we have actually sent technicians to every customer location. There's a pandemic. I don't know if everybody's aware of that. Yeah, Jeff, there's a pandemic, man. And so we do video training, but we'll be on video with you for 4 to 6 hours. But more importantly, support after you have your machine, because you're going to have questions. Usually most of your questions are in the first 30 days after you have your printer. But Equipment Zone, for one, has free support for as long as you own your printer. So if the support is call Epson, yes, Epson has a support department, but Epson support is nuts and bolts. Support also needs to be, hey, I have never printed a hoodie before. What do you recommend? That's what support is. So make sure that support is available to you. Jeff,
Yeah.
we've gone through, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to bring something up. I noticed a question popped up. Is this about, is this training all about the Epson? And you know, that's one of that's the main printer that we sell. So we do talk about that. But this DTG Academy is not just about the Epson. We have a lot of information for all direct-to-garment users. So if you have a different type of printer, a lot of what we're talking about applies to you. Forgive us if we're a little doing the homey thing.
Epson oriented, yeah. Well, you know, Jeff, all of our DTG Academies, we've had, every one of them, we've had people with different types of printers come to the DTG Academy and leave with a lot of great information, no matter what machine. But, and you know, as I mentioned before, what you can do on one DTG printer, you can do on any. What you can't do on one DTG printer, you can't do on any. So there's substantial similarity in the operation, certainly in the marketing and the sales end of it as well.